We should move on to stay on schedule. So, oh yeah, thanks, Josh.
Yeah, I was on it. So I have 13-ish minutes to talk about Mechanical Turk, and this is something that takes a really long time to learn. So basically my goal here isn't to teach you how to do this if you don't know how already, but it's to motivate you to want to learn and give you some tools to figure out how to go about doing that. So basically, for those of you who don't already know, Mechanical Turk is an online global interface run by Amazon that has humans do tasks. Most of this is corporate interest, but researchers use this stuff too for psychology experiments. So basically you give small payments for short tasks, and among the research community, there's a big push to use ethical payments. So something like at least minimum wage. As an example, I did an experiment where I paid people 50 cents for about 4 minutes of work. The downside is that Amazon takes a 20% fee of everything that you give people. And if you have more than 9 people in an experiment, they take a 40% fee, which is a big downside. But one of the things that something like Turk allows you to do is avoid the problem of only using weird participants, which is what we typically use in our university-run experiments and all that. So just to give you a quick background about who I got in my experiment, I had almost 3,000 people click yes on my human intelligence task, and 2,400-ish completed the study from 80 countries. These are the places that these folks came from. And just some demographics here: more male than female, about 36 years of age. Most people were English primary language, but several weren't. And basically most of these folks come from the United States and India, with Western Europe kind of smattered in there too as well. So 1,800 of them were non-musicians. This was a music study, so I think we got more musicians than maybe we otherwise would have. But so anyways, it's a good way of developing a much wider base of participants and helping. You can do lots of participants very quickly with little effort. It just takes money. So you probably need a grant or something. But so anyways, what you do is you go to Amazon Mechanical Turk or Amazon Web Services. You got to sign up for an AWS account. Once that's done, you're going to link your AWS account with Turk. If you do this if you sign up for a new account, you get basically a full year free of AWS services. And so you can get a relational database through AWS, or, SQL for SQL for a year, which is great because then you can have a whole bunch of people dumping data into your table all at once without stomping on the data. And then after that, you're going to sign up for a sandbox, the developer sandbox, where you can develop your experimental protocols without having to pay anything, make sure everything's working before you make it live. And then you can download a software development kit in your preferred language. And you can do it that way. Or if you want, you can also develop things online. So if you go to the Create tab here, you can make a new project. And they've got all of these templates that you can use. And they've got a bunch of code already written for that. There are benefits and detriments to using this. It's not a bad place to start maybe, but it's not great necessarily for experiments. So a lot of people use this experiment link, the survey link thing. So basically you give people a link to wherever you're hosting your experiment, and then they do that. And at the end of that, you give them a code that they put in here. And then when you accept the code, then you give them their payment. So that's one way of completely off-sourcing that. But I want to talk about what it's like to actually host something on Amazon's Mechanical Turk. So let's say we do something like this, and we have a comparison between two different musical excerpts, and you have to choose one or something like a forced choice paradigm. You can go ahead and click Create Project, and then you can put in your information here. You can, select a musical excerpt based on the political candidate, and put a description here. Maybe you're interested in which Queen song is a better description of the outcome of the presidential election for Donald Trump. Not to be timely, put some keywords in there so participants know what they're looking at. a lot of times I'll do something even like this and say less than 1 minute. And that way, as people are just kind of scrolling through, they can see, okay, this is gonna take less than 1 minute of my time. And for a task like this, maybe 8 cents is appropriate. And you know, maybe you've got, you know, a couple, you know, maybe you want 35 participants or something. You can set all that. You can even have participants have a certain criteria that they meet before they accept it. So you can have, you know, people that just kind of spam things. You can do things to filter those folks out. And then when you actually go through the design layout, you can, you know, modify this based on what you're trying to, you know. So instead of yes, no, or cannot determine, you could maybe set this to excerpt 1 and excerpt 2, and then, you know, for the header, you can put your instructions here. Which Queen song is a better descriptor of outcome? I should say the outcome of the presidential election for Donald Trump. And then you can go ahead and, you know, further customize this, get rid of this sort of thing, get rid of this sort of thing, and so on and so forth. And then you can, you know, put your links in there, and when you go ahead and preview this, you'll see, you know, what it looks, this is what participants will look like. And of course I've got errors in there. So anyways, you can play with that. You know, basically you have to know HTML or JavaScript or Python or whatever languages you want to code in to do that. So coding chops are important here. It does take a little while to develop these things. You can have multiple experimental conditions, but Mechanical Turk isn't really designed for that. It's more like, here are some tasks that a corporation wants to be accomplished, and then you do them. So if you wanted to do different experimental conditions, you can build that in with a CSV file, or you can make different hits. You know, you can make 35 of them with Donald Trump in there, or 35 of them with Joe Biden in there. You can make a bunch that randomly order the excerpts, you know, or have different excerpts that it chooses from. But there's a platform that is actually built to do this well, and that's called Psyturk. And I recommend Psyturk for this purpose. It's open source, takes care of a lot of the back end. It's got a lot of documentation here. Here, I'll post this link to the documentation in the chat. I guess I'll do this when I'm done presenting. I don't want to take time for this now. So, but this is great because it does a lot of, gives you thorough documentation to get up and running and how to use the service. It's all command line prompts, so you have to be comfortable with, you know, using that sort of thing. But I think a lot of you probably are. Let me switch over to my terminal window here, and here's a directory that I put together, just a little demo that does basically this. And you have to have a few different components in here. You know, you've got the you know, JavaScript and CSS stuff in here, and you've got the different websites, the different web pages that you'll serve up in here. And there are ways of, you know, it's all designed to navigate. But basically the way you run this is you first have to have it installed, and then you launch Psyturk. And there are a number of commands that, you know, you can play with. You can check your Mechanical Turk balance, and as long as you've set up the configuration files correctly, it's going to tie directly into not only Psyturk servers where it's going to host this stuff, but also Mechanical Turk servers where it's going to find participants and direct them to you. Basically what you need to do is make sure everything's working. You design it first, and then you have to turn the server on. And then you can change your mode from sandbox to live and post the human intelligence tasks, or you can actually debug it here, and that's helpful too. So here's the hit I put together, you know, begin the study. I thought it would be really cool to actually start the study at the beginning of my presentation and then show you the data at the end, because you're going to get, you know, 35 participants that way. But I kind of came up with this yesterday, so I didn't really get a chance to get IRB approval, and I thought that wouldn't be ethical, even though it's, you know. But anyways, you know, you've got your informed consent here, where you know, kind of walk through that. You can agree to that. I usually do something like this just to make sure that people aren't spamming, and that, you know, they got to make sure that their audio is on. So click for an audio test.
32.
And you put the verification code in, just as a way of making sure people are paying attention to this. Set the volume correctly and all that, and then you can go ahead and begin the study. Got some instructions here, begin the study. So which Queen song is a better description of what will be the final outcome of the presidential election for Donald Trump?
Another one bites the dust. Another one bites the dust.
Check one.
We are the champions, my friends.
And so then you can, select that and submit rating. And then usually it's a good idea to collect demographic data too. So you can get gender, you can get age, ethnicity, and, primary language. If it's not English, you can ask if they speak English fluently. And then what political party you most closely associate with. Actually, I would be interested to see what the results are here. But anyways, and then the debugging task is complete. So yeah, basically it's a way of testing it, and then you can go ahead and launch it and make it live and collect data. And you can collect. I collected 3,000 data, pieces of data over the course of like a weekend. It was great. So, pretty powerful. Let me show you briefly here a little bit about. So I'm going to turn the server back off. I'm going to go back out to the main directory. One of the things that you need to have in your directory is a config file. And basically, this is a lot of the options that you talked about that I showed you on the Mechanical Turk website. You're going to see here. So you've got your title and description. You've got how long you want this to be available in hours. You've got approval requirements. You've got contact information, things like that. You do need to direct to a database here. So this would be here. I've just got a local SQLite database, but you can have it set to an AWS relational database and outline what your table is, and then you've got to have your server parameters here. This has got to be set to localhost in order to have it be accessible to the internet. There are a lot of documentations that go through this. And then this is cool too. This is really important. So if you want to do randomization and controlled experiments, you can set how many conditions or how many counterbalancing variables you've got. So you can actually have Joe Biden, you can have Donald Trump, you can have different orders of excerpts, you can have different selections of excerpts and things like that. And then you've got whether you launch it in the sandbox or not. And so one last thing I think that's really helpful about this is there's this Psyturk batcher file. And this is really cool because Amazon charges you an extra 20% if you have batches of more than 9 participants. But we all want more than 9 participants. We want hundreds of them if we're using Mechanical Turk. And so this, what it does is it sends out batches of hits in groups of 9. So you say how many you want. If you want 250 total assignments or something, it'll do that in a whole bunch of different batches so that you can get only the 20% fee instead of 40%, and you just launch it there. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually I have this in a Google Drive folder. If you want to take a look and play with my demo, you can download it and play with it. You got to get Psyturk installed first. There is also this really cool experiment exchange. And so you can download all sorts of studies that have already been designed and then just modify the templates. And that's, I think, probably the easiest way to get up and running on this. And that's actually what I did, is I modified the templates. But most of these aren't designed for music experiments. Anyways, that's all the time I've got for, so I'll stop there.
Centers, could you put whatever links that you want to link to at in our shared document at your leisure? Okay.
The Slack channel or the